What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven here with your afternoon snap, and today we're going to take a look at the top Miss Marvel decks in Marvel Snap, which is basically like saying we're going to take a look at the top decks in Marvel Snap because Miss Marvel is just in most of the top decks in the game and has been for the past half a year, but finally she has come to Spotlight caches, which means that myself and other free-to-play players have finally got their hands on this powerful card, and there are a bunch of ways to abuse Miss Marvel that we're going to take a look at later on in the video. I've got some really cool game footage to showcase, but I wanted to kick things off with this game, which in a lot of ways is like very much an unimpressive game, but at the same time still a really, really impressive showcase for the power of Miss Marvel. The card is basically a 414, and the requirement to have 2+ cards in the side locations, because generally you're going to play her in the center, the requirement to have 2+ cards with different costs is really, really easily met, as many people that have been playing Marvel Snap for the past 6 months are probably already aware, but thought I would kick off with this one just to set the scene. We get not one, but 2 Subterraneas, so 8 rocks in both decks despite the Subterranea nerf. And that's going to mean that we've got a whole bunch less options. We're just going to draw rocks for the rest of the game here. You can see this deck is trying to do some cool things with Ghost Rider and the Infinite, but we're not going to make any of that happen. We are just going to draw rocks. And this is where Miss Marvel really gets to come in clutch, because she's going to pick up the slack that we are otherwise unable to figure out. And if you think about it, like Ghost Rider to reanimate a Magneto or something, okay, pretty cool play. Miss Marvel just puts 14 power on the board for the same amount of energy regardless. Oftentimes you will see Miss Marvel paired with Zabu and Sarah as well, so you're getting a 314, which is just absolutely bonkers. It's basically the same as Doctor Doom, but for half the cost, which is just incredible. One cool kind of technical thing to note here is that Jessica Jones will activate before cards are flipped over on this turn, which means that Shang-Chi will get to destroy this wonged up Jessica Jones. Miss Marvel will grab me the win over in Dream Dimension, and will grab me the win in Subterranea, where just Shang-Chi would not have been enough, but Shang-Chi plus Rock plus Miss Marvel will get me the victory. This is another great Miss Marvel deck, often referred to as Sarah Control, where you use Sarah and Zabu to delay playing Shadow King, Killmonger, Shang-Chi, Enchantress, and Miss Marvel on the final turn of the game to surprise your opponent with a bunch of tech. Then you can also use Gladiator and Maximus to put out a bunch of power, and the drawbacks on both of these cards' on reveal abilities are often mitigated on the final turn of the game as well. And Miss Marvel goes great with this strategy, especially alongside Jeff, which you can deploy to the center location like you just saw me do in that last clip, then move Jeff to one of those side locations on the final turn to activate Miss Marvel's ability, while not playing for priority before that final turn of the game. This is the Black Knight list that I was just showcasing, and while you can play both of these lists without Miss Marvel, any of the lists in this first section that I'm talking about, you can play them without Miss Marvel, but why would you? Cards of 414, a 314 when you have either Zabu or Sarah, and that's just really powerful. There's really no other crazy science around it. The fact that this deck does play some cheaper cards, Black Knight and Blade, and then also Ghost Rider, which puts 2 cards at a location, making Miss Marvel easier to trigger, does mean that there are some synergies, but the real synergy here is just that we're playing Zabu, and Miss Marvel is the best 4-cost card that isn't Shang-Chi in the game. One more deck that fits this category but is a little bit trickier is Loki, which is also oftentimes a Zabu deck, just to be able to play Loki a little bit cheaper, or to be able to play your opponent's cards cheaper once you steal them with Loki. But oftentimes Loki decks, because Miss Marvel is so well represented in all other decks that you're going to see, oftentimes when you play Loki, you want to think about Miss Marvel even if you don't have it in your own deck, because you might steal Miss Marvel from your opponent, and once you're doing that, it's just so easy and so much power. Like, think about Devil Dinosaur, doing all this work to grab like a 5/15, a 5/13. Miss Marvel's a 3/14, like all of the time. So it's really, really powerful. I will say, 3/14 with a grain of salt. You don't have to win all 3 locations in Marvel Snap. So the idea that all of that 14 power is going to be relevant is kind of not fair, but it keeps your opponent honest at the very least and does put that much power out on the board, which does give you a lot of flexibility. I did also want to give this list an honorable mention because it also uses Hope Summers, the current season pass card. So I personally have not tried out this deck, but I did see that it is a really popular list on Untapped. So I wanted to at least draw some attention to it. It's Hope, it's really just a bunch of good cards across the board. We've got Mobius, we've got Shang-Chi, no Zabu this time, instead opting to have a more varied curve across the board. But that varied curve just means that you're going to be more likely to activate Miss Marvel without as much weirdness, whereas Zabu lists could arguably play like too many 4-cost cards. This list really does not have that problem, playing only Shang-Chi and Miss Marvel. Now, other than just being a great card, you can also build around Miss Marvel. She can still extend her power into locations that are locked down by Storm or Professor X, which means you're able to get even more value out of your 4/14, which is kind of absurd. And this strategy also has some other ways to help satisfy her 2 cards with different costs at different locations, because it also plays Vision in addition to just Jeff. And Vision and Jeff are both really good with Storm, so all of these cards are kind of a natural fit together. Now, typically, you might want to Storm your location where you have Nebula, but that's Crimson Cosmos this game, which is already kind of a locked down location, and that's part of the reason that Lockdown is good too. There's a lot of common locations that prohibit which cards your opponent can play at them, which just means that when you flood one location, well, now my opponent only has one place that they can play some of their cards, which is just really powerful. This particular game is a little bit awkward because I wind up playing Miss Marvel to the Stormed location, which is just the nature of Storm costing 3 and Miss Marvel costing 4, and that I don't draw Jessica Jones here until turn 5. I guess I could have gone for the Iron Lad, but I wanted to play Miss Marvel center regardless. So it all works out here, honestly. And one other really powerful way to help satisfy Miss Marvel, I brought it up already in this video, but it's Dr. Doom. It's big Miss Marvel. It's 6-cost Miss Marvel, but it is also just a really good card in conjunction with Miss Marvel because it puts an additional card at each location, which just makes it easier to satisfy that 2+ cards at each location requirement that she has. So on this final turn of the game, I just get to drop Dr. Doom into Crimson Cosmos, which also avoids playing into Jessica Jones's location and will allow her to grow since I'm not playing into Lechugia here. I've definitely won in the flooded location, and I'm looking to have 17 power in Crimson Cosmos, which will be enough to allow me to beat Orca as well. So pretty sweet stuff here overall, and definitely a great showing for Miss Marvel. This game, kind of a little bit basic again, but it was up against Binks, who was a good sport about it, and I also have one more game with Lockdown that I want to showcase in just a moment before we reveal Binks's final play. I don't think that there's really any way that they could have competed what I was doing here, basically dropping not only 15 power on the final turn, but activating Miss Marvel in both of those side locations basically makes it like a 25 power play on this final turn of the game. But they did definitely surprise me with this Heimdall. I also wanted to show off this deck, which showcases all of the newly buffed Guardians of the Galaxy and then a bunch of Lockdown cards as well. So Miss Marvel is a natural inclusion into decks like this. And I've also seen Jean Grey played alongside all of the Guardians. I think that Jean Grey is a really powerful and potentially slept on card, and it's nice that that is now seeing some love and can also be used as a lockdown piece and interchanged with some of the other cards in this list. But this was the list that I decided to run for a few games, and I actually had really great results with it. I might put out another video with this list in a few days. I already have like a handful of fun clips to showcase, and it's just been really fun predicting my opponent's plays with the Guardians, even if sometimes Sakar makes it easy for me to find those predictions. So this was just a fun game that also I drew Miss Marvel in. Most of the other clips that I saved, I didn't have Miss Marvel, but I thought this was a good one for actually drawing Miss Marvel here. And my turn 3 play is a little bit awkward storming Attilan, but I feel like I've got such a good curve that I want to keep my hand, even if that means my opponent also gets to keep their hand. They have Agent Coulson that they stocked their hand up with, so like I kind of could see leaving Attilan to like make them reshuffle their hand, but I just figured let's go for this. And then I draw Nebula on turn 4, which does kind of throw off my curve a little bit because maybe I want to actually play Nebula this turn into the flooded location because they won't be able to play there next turn. And ultimately that's what I go for because I can still play Miss Marvel plus Star-Lord on the final turn of the game, and Star-Lord will have a reasonable high likelihood of hitting because the flooded location is going to remove one of the places for my opponent to play on the final turn. So they play Cable into the flooded location, and then they put a Jeff into their Elsa, which is awkward because now they can move this Jeff around. But I do have Daredevil Vision for this turn, and I draw Gamora, which is absolutely fantastic, and it's basically going to erase any awkwardness from this turn. Professor X and Gamora both would have been great draws here, and then Alioth would also be a fantastic draw on the final turn of the game. I will say that my opponent is going to wind up retreating in this game. I'll spoil that now. So it's going to be a little bit less climactic here. They play Arrow, which they received from Agent Coulson on turn 5, and I'm going to be able to snipe that with Gamora because of my Daredevil sight, and that will just move out Jeff, which I was already planning of moving out of the flooded location and either into Oscorp Tower or into Sakar. And currently I think what's kind of cool about this game is that I go up to 9 power in the flooded location, and my opponent gets to go up to 10 power there by moving Jeff over. So I am currently losing the flooded location. So for that reason, I thought that it was a good showcase for Miss Marvel. However, like I said, my opponent is just going to wind up retreating here. Still, Miss Marvel could have gotten it done. But that is nothing compared to this final clip of this video. Iron Lad hits my onslaught, and this is only turn 5 of a 7-turn game, so I'm gonna also be able to use Mystique to copy that ability and then play an actual onslaught. So all of these abilities are gonna double up and double up on top of each other, and this is going to be the most insane numbers I have ever seen in a game of Marvel Snap. Leave a guess in the comments down below if you think you have any idea where this is going, but it's going to be absolutely crazy. We're going to double and triple all of these numbers an absurd amount of times here, and then also Mystique is a 3, Iron Lad's a 4, Iron Man is a 5, and Onslaught is a 6. So we're going to be able to add even more power to that location with Miss Marvel on the final turn, and then of course we're going to distribute it everywhere with this Living Tribunal, and this is just an absolute grand slam of a game. I am thankful that this opponent did not retreat and was nice enough to stay in it here so we could see just the most absurd numbers I think I have ever seen in this game, and definitely a fun way to end off this video. My opponent is going to drop an Apocalypse, a Rhino for Monster Metropolis to shrink that Apocalypse, and then we are going to flip over Miss Marvel and the Iron Man, and then we have over 1 million power in all 3 locations, 1.5 million in all 3 locations, 7 total digits, absolutely nuts. For today, that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace.